Well, good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. If you're new to Forest Adventures with Scott, I appreciate you clicking on the video. If you're interested, find any value or entertainment in the channel, I welcome you to subscribe. Hit that like button. Anyway, I wanted to update everyone on my revised Get Home bag. Now, if you've been with me from the beginning, I posted a video a couple years ago about my Get Home bag. And what I realized over the years, after kind of doing a lot of research, taking it on numerous trips, taking it with me every day on the job, I found out a few things. Mainly, I found out that it was way too heavy. I had way too much stuff in it. So today, I'm just going to break down my revised edition of my Get Home bag and show you guys the contents. Now, I will say that I am still using the 511 Rush 20 liter. I do really like the bag a lot. I like the design. I like the pockets. And so that's what we're rolling with still. But the contents have changed. And, you know, I think I was going with more of a bug out bag approach when I built this Get Home bag initially. Because what I found out is there is a difference between the two. A Get Home bag is supposed to be almost a minimalist version of a bug out bag. Just something to get you home. Just something that will get you through maybe one night. Or until you get cell phone service, if that's still a thing. So let's just take a few minutes, open it up, kind of show you what I'm rolling with these days and what I'm not rolling with these days. Stay tuned. Okay, my friends, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go and open it up a little bit at a time. It's not going to be in any type of order or anything like that, but I'm going to show you some things that I think are important to have in your Get Home bag. So we'll just start with a whistle. Woo! That's loud. I do keep this carabiner on the outside because from time to time, if the pack does, because I do use this pack for a lot of things, but it is my everyday Get Home bag. So the carabiner comes in handy if you need to attach something to the outside. Up in this top pocket, we have a very minimalist first aid kit. You know, a few bandages in there, some quick tape, some moleskin, you know, things like that. You know, if you're hiking, if you're trying to get home and you're having to put some miles in on foot, moleskin comes in handy for blisters. There's ibuprofen in here, and that's about it. Now, I will show you another piece of kit that I use if I had to make a tourniquet. So I don't carry a tourniquet. I know a lot of people say that you should, but I have another way of doing that. So that's all I keep in that top pocket there. There's no side pockets on this pack. I kind of wish that there were because I would keep my water bottle on the outside. But there's enough room in here since I have, you know, made this pack smaller to not have to have a pocket on the outside. So let's open it up. We have a clamshell type of pack here. And so the one thing that I found that I really like about this pack compared to other day packs and tech packs like this is this clamshell opening. Kind of looks like a mess right here, but let's just get into it. So, water. Almost one of the most important things in your pack, in your Get Home bag. You have to stay hydrated no matter what time of the year it is, summer, spring, winter, or fall. So what I do is I take an empty Nalgene bottle. I always have water on me in my car, so I would probably transfer that water over into my Nalgene. Depending on how long I was out there, I do have a Sawyer Squeeze water filter, and I have a bag too. So I'm going to upgrade this at some point. This isn't the best bag in the world, but that's what comes with the Sawyer Squeeze. And anyway, so that's what I use for water and water filtration. I do have one of those life straws, but I don't really carry that anymore because honestly, if you're walking unless you're walking along a river or a stream the whole time, I mean, you can only get intake a little bit of water at a time. Okay, second in my get home bag is food. Obviously, you need the calories to get to where you're going. What I like to carry, in my mind, I'm hoping that this get home bag can get me through 24 to 36 hours. So this amount of food, what I have is I have a couple of meat sticks. I have some energy bars. I have a little bit of instant oatmeal and a few packs of coffee. Very small, takes up hardly no room. And I also carry one dehydrated meal. So in the instance that I am out there overnight and I do need some calories to get to where I'm going, one of these dehydrated meals packs a lot of calories. So that's my food right there. That's what I carry there. Food and water, obviously very important. So you have to have a way to be able to heat up water and cook that dehydrated meal. So I do carry a small backpacking. I've got some different items here. I've got fuel. I've got a stove, isobutane stove, some utensils, an extra lighter, and I'll show you momentarily that this is a redundant item. I have 2 lighters and other ways to make fire. And then I have this pot. Now this pot here is a 600 milliliter pot. So I can use this to cook in, heat up water, drink coffee, what have you. It's made of titanium, so it's very light, and you don't even know it's in your pack. But you have to have a way to heat up water. Fits in there perfectly. And that is my cook system for my get home bag. So with food and water and a way to cook food and heat up water out of the way, what about cover? What about cover? You need to be able to, if you are going to spend the night out there, if you're not well versed in how to build a shelter, you're going to need some sort of cover, or you're going to succumb to the elements. Now, depending on the time of year and how you're dressed is going to determine how much of a shelter that you need. But regardless of the time of year, I'm always going to take a tarp. So inside this bag, I have a 9x11 tarp with really lightweight tent stakes. So the thing I like about a big tarp like 9x11 is the fact that you can use part of it as ground cover and use the rest of it as your shelter. So I know how to build a lean-to shelter in the woods, but having this, if you're tired, it's a bad situation, you're gonna want to have that protection from rain, wind, and so forth. Speaking of rain and wind, and something else I like to keep in my get home bag is a small raincoat. Now this one packs down really small, so it's not super heavy duty. You wouldn't want to be caught in 3 days of torrential downpour in it, but just to keep your core temperature good, this is going to keep the rain off your shoulders, off your torso, and off your head. So that's in there as well. Okay, let's talk about. Let's go back to the first aid idea. So I always have a bright colored bandana, and a bandana can serve so many different purposes in a get home bag. I think most important is it could be used as a tourniquet if need be. If you know how to tie a tourniquet, then you can use this with a stick and it'll work just fine. I like the bright colors in case you need to flag someone down, and I'll just like it to keep yourself kind of cleaned up, and it actually can be the first step in filtering water. So if you were in an area where your water was really rocky and murky, you could use this first, then use your Sawyer squeeze, and there's just all kinds of purposes for the bandana. So I'll always have either an orange one or a red one in my get home bag. Electronics. So the scenario I would find myself in, I think, would be more of a being stuck on a solo camping trip in the backcountry. I mean, I hope that, society wouldn't collapse type situation where I needed that kind of get home bag, but I would be prepared if it did. But I would find myself, if using my get home bag in a situation where, take for example, recently when I went backpacking up in southwestern Virginia, and they had all that storm damage from Hurricane Helene. Now, I heard about a couple of backpackers who actually got stuck up there during the storm. Now, I would probably have enough sense not to, go through with a trip like that with a hurricane on the way. But, say for example, I'm on a Forest Service road and there is a storm and trees do fall down over the road. I want to be able to find my way out of there. There's usually no cell service a lot of the places that I go. So anyway, what I do, I have downloaded the premium version of Onyx Backcountry, and I download my maps to areas that I go camping and hiking in before I ever leave. So what happens when you pull that map up, you are pulling a satellite view of yourself and the terrain and a way to get out of there. So for example, if I was camping somewhere, that happened, I had to walk away from my car, or my car just broke down, I would already have that map downloaded and I could get out there and find my way out, find my way to cell service. So you have to have a way to be able to keep everything charged, or your phone charged for that matter, especially if you're out there for several days, and you're using your phone, you're using your Onyx Backcountry to find your way out. It's going to drain your battery. So I keep a solar power bank with me all the time in my get home bag to keep my phone charged. All right, before we get into this little thing that you've seen many times, let's talk about protection. So I know there's going to be some conversations, and I'm hoping there will be some conversations behind protection. So I have in the last year started carrying bear spray. I carry bear spray on day hikes in the mountains. I carry it with me on camping trips where I'm car camping, and we're cooking food and attracting wildlife and that sort of thing. Just about everywhere I go, I carry this now. I've started keeping this in my get home bag. And, it's a deterrent, and it can be a human deterrent. Now, that's not going to, replace a firearm. And so let me just talk about a firearm for a second. When I go on camping trips, especially solo camping trips, I always have a firearm. So if I'm on a solo camping trip and I'm having to walk away from my car, I will always have a firearm on me. But I'll always have bear spray on me as well. So hopefully this will never get deployed on a bear, a cat, or a human. It's with me. So that's my protection, and that's my explanation for not carrying a handgun every day. And it doesn't stay in this pack until I go on a trip. So, some other protection. Now, this is one of the places that I decided I was going to shave some weight at. In the past, I kept that really big 5-inch, quarter-inch thick steel blade with me as my survival blade. But I found out over the year that it was just cumbersome. It was taking up so much space. It was way too heavy for what it needed to be. So I just carry the Moore Garberg. I just keep the Moore Garberg in my get home bag at all times, because it is tough enough to handle chores where maybe I need to make shelter or self-defense or something like that. I can process wood to get a fire going. That's another thing. So one other thing that I excluded from my original pack is a saw. Now, I love my little hand saw, and I do carry that a lot, but I don't keep it in this get home bag all the time because, let's be real, I have found just on backpacking trips that I haven't really needed it. If I do need to start a fire, this knife with a piece of wood can process all the wood that I need. So the Garberg is the knife that I carry in my get home bag. Now I do still carry cordage because I feel like cordage is one of those things that, you know, you could just use for lots of different purposes. Mainly for shelter building. It could probably serve some other purposes as well. And it honestly doesn't weigh that much, so I don't feel like, you know, it's adding a lot to the pack. Okay, if you are putting in some miles, you're gonna want some kind of, you know, light. I prefer a headlamp over a flashlight because, you know, hands-free. But honestly, you know, especially if you're having to hike at night, you know, you're gonna want to illuminate your area and, you know, see what's out there. So these days I'm rolling with the Black Diamond Spot. This one is the rechargeable one, and I've used it on several trips now, and I really like it. So yeah, just make sure that you keep it charged. If you're keeping it in your get home bag, anything that needs a charge, you know, just keep up with that. And going back to the food, make sure, you know, you're not letting it sit in there where it gets to where, you know, your food is expired. You know, if I have to eat those, you know, those bars and stuff like that in a few weeks and just replace them, I'll do that. So yeah, headlamp, a must, or a good flashlight. Getting down to the nitty gritty and the last few things. So, oh, and before we get into this too. So, a compass. So I mentioned that I do download an offline map just about everywhere I go now with that Onyx Backcountry app. But I still like to have a compass with me. And I know how to use a compass. So, you know, if I'm going somewhere where I'm going to do some hiking and backpacking, I'm going to have a map of that local area. I do have a map of my local area where I live. I keep it in here. Not going to break all that out. But, you know, if I find myself having to, you know, I know my city pretty well, but, you know, it includes a couple other towns close by, so I can kind of make my way. But a compass, always important if you know how to use it. You know, a few of these little hand warmers in there, you know, just little small stuff like this, you know, especially in cool weather. You can find yourself, you know, needing something like this in a pinch. And let's get into, so that's basically the majority of everything in the bag except for my EDC pouch. Now, I've shown you this pouch several times in the last year and probably have shown you the content several times, you know, in the last year. But, you know, it's something that stays in my get home bag as well, so I'm going to show it now. So, I did not mention a cover. I have a tarp, I have clothes, but I also carry an emergency blanket. And I also always have a wool blanket in my car. I don't necessarily keep it in the bag because that would be something that would be tied on the outside, if that makes sense. So it's in the car, you know, if I have to use it and hook it up to my bag. But I have the emergency blanket too, as well. I also have like several ways to make fire. I still think that's, like, as far as redundancy is concerned, I think it's probably the most important thing out there. Now, there could be situations where you don't want a fire. And in that case, you know, if you didn't want to draw attention to yourself or something like that, then, you know, a fire you wouldn't need. But not being able to have a fire when you can have a fire and not being able to make it is, you know, it would be, you know, it would be one of those things where it would just bring you down so far. You're already miserable, you're probably exhausted, and not being able to make a fire, yeah, that would be bad. So, yeah, I have, like I said, another lighter. Now, this lighter's wrapped with duct tape, so duct tape would come in handy for lighting a fire if you were struggling, you know, getting one going. So we have two lighters in the kit. We have waterproof matches here. Just another way. We also, as a last resort, would have a ferrocerium rod. You've seen me use this if you follow my channel so many times. I actually enjoy practicing using a ferrocerium rod. And so as far as that's concerned, I do keep, because I think this is important too, I do keep a small notebook and a small pen in my EDC pouch. Because if you are out there and you do get turned around, it would be nice to be able to make notes. You know, oh, I've seen this landmark, I'm going in the wrong direction, you know, or just anything for that matter. You know, you take notes for, you know, if you see a bad situation and you want to make a note of it and what you saw, you know, that kind of thing, you know, you can use that down the road. And so I also keep quite a bit of Vaseline cotton balls and dryer lint in this same little EDC pouch. Just a great way to get a fire started if everything is soaking wet. So, you know, we're going to stay warm out there if we're having to spend the night somewhere. But yeah, that's it. That is my get home bag. And I'm sure there are some items that people would say, well, you got to have this and you got to have this. But I'm trying to reel that in, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of stuff in here, because that's the point. We're trying to get home as quick as we can. We're trying to get to a place where maybe has some cell service or you can get help. I'm not trying to bug out for 72 hours and have, you know, 4 days worth of food and, you know, blankets and all this kind of stuff, where maybe that's more of a car situation, a bug out car situation. This is just the get home bag. And I've been really happy with how everything has worked for me. Now, have I needed to get home in an emergency? No. If I have to, will I be ready? You betcha. Well, thanks for joining me on this episode of Forest Adventures with Scott. I hope you found some value in it. And just give me a thumbs up. Appreciate you watching. Peace out.